My hand didn't shake when I put the folder on the table. 15 years. That's how long they called it cute. A hobby, my little side project, something I'd grow out of once I got serious about the real family business. And now I owned the family business. My father sat at the head of the conference table, silent. My brother, the golden child, the one who'd run operations into the ground, stared at the acquisition documents like they were written in a foreign language. "This is a joke," he said. I didn't smile. "It's a binding offer. Your attorney has already reviewed it. You have 72 hours to accept, or I let the bankruptcy proceed on its own." Funny how hobbies work when you actually build them, isn't it? But let me take you back to where this really started. Because they didn't just mock the business. They tried to steal it. Drop your time zone in the comments. I want to know who's hearing this at 2 in the morning. And if this is your first time here, hit that like button. You're going to want to stay for the receipts. I grew up in my family's import business. My father started it 30 years ago. My older brother, Kyle, was groomed to take over from the time he could walk. Strategy meetings, client dinners, handshake deals at trade shows. I got the grunt work. Inventory counts, shipping logs, filing. The stuff Kyle was too important to do. At family dinners, Dad would toast Kyle's latest deal. Meanwhile, I'd sit there with my laptop, working on supply chain databases I'd started building in college. "When you're done playing with your computer, we need those manifests updated." That was Dad's favorite line. Kyle's was worse. "You know software's a fad, right? Real business is relationships, handshakes. You can't code trust." I stopped trying to explain. In my junior year, my logistics professor introduced me to API integration for freight tracking. I saw something they didn't, a way to automate the chaos every importer dealt with. Real-time visibility, predictive delays, cost optimization. I called it FreightWise. I built the prototype in my apartment. Nights, weekends, mornings before my shift at the warehouse. My first paying client was a mid-sized furniture importer who'd lost 6 figures to port delays. Within a year, I had 12 clients. Kyle laughed when I told him, "That's cute. Let me know when you're ready to do real work." I kept every email, every Slack message, every commit log on GitHub. I didn't know why back then. I just hated being called careless. Turns out I was building evidence. 3 years later, FreightWise had 200 clients across North America. I had a co-founder, a small team, and investors circling for our Series A, and my family's business was dying. Supply chains had gone digital. The old handshake model couldn't compete. Kyle had bet big on a logistics provider that went bankrupt. They lost half their client base in 6 months. That's when he called the family meeting. I thought maybe finally he wanted to learn, to collaborate. I was wrong. "We need to talk integration," Kyle said. He slid a document across the table. "Partnership agreement, 75% equity to a new family holding company. Me as a technical consultant." I read it twice. "You want me to hand over my client list and my IP." "We're blood," Kyle said. "You built that thing on our dime. Dad paid for your college, remember? With a loan I paid back." "Don't be selfish," he said. "This is about family." My father's voice crackled over the speakerphone. "You've had your fun. Time to come back to the real business." I looked at Kyle. "This isn't a partnership. It's a takeover." He smiled. "Call it what you want. You have 7 days to sign." I stood up. "I'll need to talk to my attorney." "You do that," Kyle said. I walked out of that office knowing exactly what was coming. They weren't asking. They were taking. I refused to sign. 48 hours later, a cease and desist letter arrived from their attorney. It claimed I had misappropriated trade secrets from the family business. It demanded I turn over my entire client list and source code for audit. And it got worse. 2 of my longest-running clients forwarded me an anonymous email. It alleged that FreightWise was built on stolen intellectual property and that I was under legal investigation. Both clients paused their contracts pending clarification. My co-founder called me at midnight. "If this kills the fundraise, we're done." I sat alone in my office, spreadsheets open, searching for any overlap. Any file I might have touched, any line of code that could have come from the family system. For 12 hours, I wondered if they were right. If I'd been careless, if I'd taken something without realizing it, if I really was the selfish one. Then I opened the folder on my drive labeled CYA, cover your ass, every prototype file, every version, every timestamp. I hadn't taken anything, but they were betting I couldn't prove it. They were wrong. I pulled every record. GitHub commit history, 1,847 commits. Every single one from my personal laptop and cloud account. AWS infrastructure logs. Every server spun up under my name, my credit card, my business entity. Third-party API contracts, all signed before I ever touched a family database. And then the best one. My college capstone project. I'd submitted the original FreightWise prototype in 2011. 2 years before I even started working at the family warehouse. I compiled it into a 40-page binder. Cover letter was one sentence. I built this alone. Retract your claim in 72 hours or I file for declaratory judgment and defamation. I sent it certified mail. 2 days later, the attorney's assistant called. We're reviewing the materials. My client may have been mistaken about the timeline. The cease and desist was quietly withdrawn. Both clients resumed their contracts. Kyle sent me a single text. You got lucky. I didn't reply. Because I knew my brother. He doesn't quit, he pivots. Kyle changed tactics. He started a whisper campaign. Mutual contacts in the industry started reaching out. Casual questions. Had I really left the family in crisis? Was it true I was poaching their clients? Then my mother called. She was crying. Why are you doing this? After everything we sacrificed for you. I tried to explain. She didn't want to hear it. Your brother says you're trying to destroy the family. That's when Kyle made his real move. He announced a new platform, a logistics suite built specifically for importers, pricing 40% below FreightWise, marketed as Legacy Family Trust and American Reliability. He sent the pitch deck to my client list. 2 mid-sized accounts told me they were evaluating competitive bids. I pulled the developer contract through a back channel. They'd paid an $8,000 deposit to a dev shop overseas. No milestones delivered. No working prototype. It was vaporware. Kyle was burning money he didn't have to destroy my reputation and steal my market share. And it was working. I gave myself 24 hours to feel it. The betrayal. The anger. Then I called my CFO. Pull financials on the family business. Everything public. I want to know how deep the hole is. She called back the next day. You need to see this. The dossier was damning. 3 missed supplier payments. 2 active liens filed by creditors. Total exposure, $470,000. A bridge loan, high interest, secured against every remaining asset the company owned. And the development contract I'd suspected was fake? Confirmed. $8,000 paid. 0 work delivered. But that wasn't the worst part. My CFO had pulled chat logs from a former family employee, someone who'd quit and joined my team. Kyle's plan wasn't to compete. It was to steal my API keys, route his orders through my infrastructure without paying, and when that collapsed, or when I sued, he'd declare bankruptcy and blame me publicly. Scorched earth. I stared at the liens. How long do they have? 90 days, she said. Maybe less. This wasn't a business strategy. It was a Hail Mary, and I was the target. I sat with that for a long time. Then I opened one more file. A trust document. My grandfather had set it up before he died. Split evenly between Kyle and me when my parents retired. The balance should have been $1.7 million. It showed $240,000. Someone had been withdrawing. And it wasn't me. I hired a forensic accountant. It took her 4 days. Kyle had been covering operational losses for 2 years by raiding the family trust. 3 withdrawals, $920,000 total. The first withdrawal had my father's signature. The other 2 were forgeries. She showed me the image overlays. Identical pen pressure, identical stroke angle. Someone had scanned the first signature and traced it. Would your father have authorized this? She asked. I didn't know. Maybe he did and buried his head in the sand. Maybe Kyle never told him. Either way, the trust was supposed to be split evenly. $850,000 each. Kyle had stolen my inheritance to prop up his failing business, and now he wanted me to bail him out with the company I'd built from nothing. If the family business collapsed publicly, the trust would be audited. Kyle would face fraud charges, so he needed me, not as a partner, as a cover. The accountant closed her laptop. What do you want to do? I looked out the window for a long time. Then I said it out loud. I want to buy them. I wasn't angry anymore. I was calm, because now I knew exactly what to do. I convened my board, laid out the plan, make a formal acquisition offer for the family business, fair market value, depressed because of the liens, but enough to clear the debts and give my parents a clean exit. Kyle would lose all operational control. At the same time, I'd file a demand letter regarding the trust. I'd waive fraud claims in exchange for his resignation and a no-compete. Clean, professional, not revenge. My attorney looked at the term sheet. This is generous. More than they deserve. It's enough for my parents, I said. That's the point. If they refused, I'd let the business collapse on its own and pursue the trust independently. But I didn't think they'd refuse, because Kyle had no other options. I sent the offer via certified mail. Copied the family attorney. Scheduled a board meeting in 10 days. I didn't call ahead. I didn't give them time to spin it. I just showed up. The night before the meeting, my father left me a voicemail. We need to talk about this face-to-face. I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it. There was nothing left to say. I'd already said it in writing. Now they just had to sign. I walked into that boardroom like I owned it, because in 10 minutes I would. My parents sat on one side of the table, Kyle on the other, their attorney at the end, looking tired. My M&A counsel sat next to me. I placed 2 folders on the table, one labeled offer, one labeled alternative. Let's keep this simple, I said. Folder 1 is a full buyout, $1.2 million in cash. All debts cleared. Mom and Dad keep advisory shares and a pension equivalent. Kyle exits with no equity, no role, and no fraud charges filed. Kyle's face went red. You've got to be. Folder 2, I continued, is what happens if you say no. I opened my laptop, turned on the projector. First slide, county lien filing. $470,000 owed to a freight vendor. Second slide, trust ledger. 3 withdrawals, 2 with forged signatures. Third slide, the dev contract. $8,000 paid, 0% complete. My mother's hand went to her mouth. Kyle stood up. This is revenge. You're doing this because you're petty and... I'm doing this, I said, so Mom and Dad don't lose everything because you couldn't admit you were failing. My father's eyes locked on the trust document. I don't know if he knew. I don't know if he chose not to know. But he knew now. The alternative is bankruptcy within 60 days, I said. A trust fraud investigation. Public disgrace. I walk away and you deal with it on your own. Silence. My mother was crying. Kyle was shaking. And my father who'd spent 30 years building that business, looked at Kyle and said the only thing that mattered. Sign it. Kyle's head snapped toward him. Dad? Sign it. It's over. My attorney slid the acquisition agreement across the table. Kyle stared at it like it was a death sentence. But my father still held the majority voting shares. And he'd made his choice. Kyle signed. My parents signed. I signed last. And just like that, I owned the company that raised me. I walked out of that room and felt nothing but tired. Kyle moved 2 states away within a month, took a sales job with a mid-sized distributor. We haven't spoken since. My parents kept their advisory shares. They collect a modest quarterly distribution. Enough to live comfortably. We talk on holidays. It's civil. It's distant. We don't do dinners. I restructured the family business as a subsidiary of FreightWise. Kept 70% of the staff. Integrated the legacy import clients with the SaaS platform. Revenue is up 40% year over year. The company my father built isn't gone. It's just under new management. Last year, I endowed a scholarship at my university. It's for first-generation students studying supply chain and logistics technology. I named it after my grandfather. Not the family, just him, because he's the one who believed you could build something that lasted. I'm in therapy now, processing the grief of being right, but losing the family I wanted. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You wanted love. You got victory. Those aren't the same thing. She's right, I won. And it still hurts. Because I didn't just want to prove them wrong. I wanted them to be proud. But you can't earn respect from people who need you to stay small. And you can't love someone into seeing your worth. I tried for 15 years. Now I'm building something different. Boundaries. A team that values what I create. A business that doesn't need me to shrink to survive. I didn't get the family I wanted. But I kept the life I built. And that's enough. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between your peace and your family's approval? What did you pick? Tell me in the comments. I read them all. And if this story hit you in a place you weren't expecting, if you've ever been the person who had to protect their work from the people who should have celebrated it, subscribe. I've got more stories about boundaries, receipts, and what happens when you stop apologizing for your success. One last thing. This is a fictionalized dramatization based on real themes. It is not legal or financial advice. If you're facing something similar, talk to a licensed professional in your area. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.